welcome and good afternoon to you, and many thanks for joining this. It means a lot to me to have you on the other end of the computer, the internet line. I thoroughly enjoy doing this, and I'm really glad. I've been very fortunate in my career, but one thing I never had was visibility of career opportunities at the age you're at. So hopefully over the next half hour or so, I'll give you a bit of an insight into as Ellie said, my career journey, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and also about Taylor Wimpey as a company as well. Just a couple of caveats. If my children come charging in, I apologise. They're drilled to be on best behaviour for this next hour or so, but it has happened on other con calls I've been on. And I just want to open up by saying you guys are in such a good place. You know, my understanding is you're about 16 or 18 years of age, and you've started to get a gut feel that you want to go into the house building industry, which for a starting point is an absolutely brilliant industry, loads of opportunity and exceptionally fun. I didn't get started until I was 23. So straight away, you guys have got a 6 or 7, 8 year lead on. So the world really is your oyster. Ellie, can you do the slides? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so as Ellie said, I'm not going to go over that too much, but in terms of the critical discussion points, a little bit just who I am, so you know who you're talking to, and then about Taylor Wimpey, how we operate, how a typical house builder operates, to give you a bit of visibility of all of the moving parts in there. And then a follow-on from that is actually all the opportunities that sit within a typical house builder. And hopefully I've got some really good examples which should be quite motivating for you as to where your career can potentially get to. A little bit over my career. Sorry, I'm not on that slide just yet. So a little bit about my career and how that's played out. And then also, as a company, what we do in terms of recruitment and the different schemes that you can get into Taylor Wimpey through. And then lastly, just a handful of what my top career tips would be. And hopefully they may be of some use and hopefully a bit thought-provoking. So thanks, Ellie. So I'm the lunatic dressed in rainbow headbands, wristbands, rainbow tattoos. This is a photo of a week or so ago. You know, just to show working life is not all serious. We had a Taylor Wimpey isolation lockdown challenge. Mine was to do a bit of exercising on a bike. The kids said, well, why don't you do it as a rainbow for the NHS? Brilliant, did that, raised 150 quid, lovely. So that's the madman who's talking to you. I've got a young family. I've got 2 young daughters who are my absolute heart and soul in my life. I'm a big softie, really. I really am. And my hobbies, just so you know a little bit about me, I really enjoy the exercise and used to do a lot of triathlon. So that for me has been critical, really through my career, to have a release, because things can get busy, can get intense. So that's really what my go-to hobbies are. I first became a managing director in 2016, so about 4 years or so ago, at the Taylor Wimpey East Midlands office in Leicester. And just to give you a flavour for the size of that as a business, I'll come on to how that sits in what I Taylor Wimpey in a minute. But it is a business that I'm the managing director of. We have at the moment about 12. Last year we had about 13. So between 12 or 13, what I would call developments. So when you're traveling in the car and you see a new house building site, we operate about 12 of those. It is a business at any point in time I want to be between 10 and 15 outlets. It is the shape of it. In terms of the turnover, the size of the business, the revenue, last year was probably about 165 million quid. So quite sizable. The profit out of that was probably about 27 to 28. So again, the business itself is a big entity. Employees in East Midlands is probably about 150, 160 at the moment in time, but that is one business within Taylor Wimpey who have 23 of those businesses that I operate, if that makes sense. So I operate one of what are 23 business operational business units. This slide which Ellie's got up, I don't know how the colour is for you guys. We may have lost a little bit of colour on there. What this is saying is who are we? And we're one of the UK's largest residential developers. So we're definitely subject to the numbers you look at, whether it's profit, whether it's number of houses. We always sit within the top 2 or the top 3. Last year, as a company, we built just under 16,000 homes, so not insignificant. In the East Midlands, in my region, we did 620. Was a contribution that we made to that. As I've said, we've got 23 regional offices, and literally they go from Edinburgh through to Exeter. All through the country. We have 2 in Scotland. We have one in South Wales. So really, irrespective of your geography in the country, there's a regional Taylor Wimpey hub that you could more than likely get very easy access into. Our head office is based at High Wycombe, and also we have an operation in Spain. It's a much smaller setup, an historical piece. It brings a very, very nice fit into the company, but it may be a little bit harder to engage with that unless you did migrate through to Spain. In terms of the size of the company, our revenues last year were 4.2 billion, and the profit before, or what we call an operating profit, was about 820 million. So a big, sizable organisation. Across the UK, don't know the exact figure, we probably employ around about 5,500 individuals. So again, in terms of size of the organisation, it is a substantial entity. Thanks, Ellie. Next slide, if possible. What I want to convey is really important to me. Is very much what we do. You could very much be on this call thinking, yeah, these guys buy land, they build houses, they sell them, and then off they trot. In the critical piece that I want to get across to you is that's part of it, but our whole game, everything we do, is so much more than that. If you just press the next click, Ellie, hopefully there's a couple of bullet points which come up. Thank you. When I talk, I make a really key distinction between building houses and building homes. What we do, we build homes. So if you're an apprentice joiner or a directly employed joiner or bricklayer, every bit of timber, every brick that we lay goes into somebody's home. Now this gets a really personal sentiment about it when you think, I'll come to the third one in a second, but this is where families are made, families live. What we do involves clearly the biggest purchase of everybody's life. So operating in this industry, it is a massive privilege, it really is. But a key takeaway I would love you to get from this is we don't simply build houses. When we go into building dreams, I meet a lot of our customers and people who are buying their first house, people who are newlyweds. There's always a story over the house purchase. People having Christmas in their houses, summer barbecues. People who work for Taylor Wimpey firmly believe that this isn't about house building. We strive to build and deliver what people's dreams actually are. Also, as an organisation, we have a big investment programme across the board, across every discipline, in terms of career trajectories, in career progression. Thanks, Ellie. Again, another key takeaway about Taylor Wimpey, before I get onto the shape of the organisation and career bits and pieces, it is the cultural principles we have. This is a key differentiator between us and other house builders, other developers. On the right, I won't go through all of them. What's lovely about these is there's a lot of interpretations you can have about how they affect customers, how they affect all the employees that we have, how they affect the shape of the organisation. But the core of those values and those principles shapes everything that we do and how we do it. So to give you a flavour of that, in this pretty tough time, this COVID-19 time, the lockdown period, we were the first house builders to shut our sites, not a commercial decision to take whatsoever. But we felt it was the right thing to do, and this was before any government guidance came out saying you need to consider it. We took the view we wanted to close the site if we weren't happy with the safety or the lack of controls to the risk that was in front of us. We're the only developer in this period to develop a scheme which supports subcontractors. So we've provided a £5 million, what we're calling pay it forward scheme for subcontractors, really to give them accelerated payments. They'll do the works in ULA later on. But this is recognising the size of some subcontractors, the smaller ones may struggle through this period. Our chief exec has set up a printing facility for 3D face masks. We've made, I think, over 50 care home donations, and through the crazy rainbow photo you saw at the beginning, nationally we raised over £60,000 on that day for the NHS and a couple of charities, which is great. And in terms of our reopening, you may have seen in the press we are reopening, but we are going to be the slowest to reopen to get to it's a very much a phased approach, a phased strategy. We've got site managers on site this week, but it's going to be 5 weeks until actually we say everybody can come back. So cultural principles in Taylor Wimpey are very strong. So thank you, Anne. So when at the top, I'm not sure if you can see it, it says a house building machine. And very simply, I'm very simple up here. So I need a simple way I can see the business that I'm responsible for. So I see it simply as a big series of cogs. If you can get your head into this space as well, because this will be helpful for the next slide that we come on to and what we talk about. But every department, in effect, is a different cog. In between them, the interdependency is very clear. The connections, the rhythm, everything is dependent upon everything else. What we can't have, what I cannot afford to have, as on the slide on the bottom right cog, is a department that isn't functioning. For me as a leader, that's a critical piece to kind of have really close intel, observations on each department. What needs changing? Is that cog losing its shape? Does it need replacing? Does it need to move quicker? Well, what's happening with it? So that if you can have that as a visual as we move on to the next slide, hopefully that may support us as we go through this. So this is pretty typical for most house builders. Maybe some subtle variations at the front end of this, but not too significant. So it's a really good basis, hopefully, to provide a bit of a shape for you and a bit of an understanding. So what I'm going to do first of all is talk about the departments and really what they do, and then we'll go into the roles and the opportunities within those departments. So the first thing we need to do, we cannot build houses if we don't have land. And we aren't a construction company, we're a developer. So the first thing we need to do is buy land, which is actually my upbringing in Taylor Wimpey, and it's a fantastic discipline. I loved every second of it. So we buy land in a number of different ways, and I'm not going to get into that now, but if we want another con-call on that, fantastically, we can do our buy land. But land really falls into 2 different categories. Either you're a land person who's going out buying land which we can develop tomorrow, which is what I've classified as short-term land, or actually, if Ellie owns a big green field, I may go, Ellie, I really like your green field. It's £20,000. And then when we get planning, I buy the site off you on an agreed purchase mechanism. So we operate both of those disciplines, short-term land for tomorrow and further longer-term land. And within that discipline, when I'll come on to it, but there's a lot of negotiation, there's legal contracts, a lot of, not mathematics, I did it, can't be that difficult, but running numbers as to how much we can afford to pay for it, in those sort of skill sets. But to inform how we buy the land, we've got to understand what it's going to look like, and that's both above ground and also. So they will support the land team as part of the land acquisition. But also, when we've purchased the site and we're getting planning and we're actually building it, this team is the real hub of all the information of what the building develops from. So in the technical department, again, really simple for my understanding, if we've got ground level here, we've got everything below ground, and that's the engineering department, and everything above ground, and that's the design department. So everything below ground is all the drainage, it's all the utilities, it's all the levels, all the retaining walls, archaeology we may need to deal with. And you'd be absolutely amazed as to how complex that is as a discipline, but absolutely critical. One of the first things we would always look at when we buy a bit of land is actually how can we drain it. So you may think it's not that important, but if you can't drain it, we aren't going very far. Then actually you've got above ground where you have the design side. So this is critical for 2 or 3 things. Number one, what is it going to look like in terms of how many houses? And then actually, what is each house going to look like as well? So from a land buying and a planning perspective and a customer's perspective, that's the technical department. Commercial department is very much the number machine, whereby the estimator will feed in and support the land acquisition, and the quantity surveyors, once we've purchased a bit of land, will be the key guards, if you like, the cost control to make sure we're developing the site with in line with the forecasts of the expenditure we'll be expecting. Then we have the production side. So when you drive past a development site on a roadside, where we have the houses actually being constructed, that's pretty much where the production team reside, and they're responsible for really building the houses, opening the sites, and actually closing the sites afterwards. We build them, and what's critical is we need to sell them as well, and we need to sell them in a very professional manner. So the sales and marketing team probably falls into 2 disciplines, which may be not too obvious at this stage. But we have the sales presence on site, or at the moment in time we don't. We're taking sales remotely over Microsoft Teams, so we're taking reservations over the internet at the moment, which is a first for us. But typically you would have the sales office on site. But then actually in the back office, there's a lot of marketing, there's a lot of support in terms of coordination of the optional extras that every customer wants to have in their property, the control of the marketing spend, and a lot of time goes into designing and setting up the show homes and all the outlets which we have coming on. Typically we'd open 3 or 4 outlets every year. The legal team, if we're selling 600 houses a year, we've got to go through the legal process of that. So we have a big legal hub who supports us. And the customer service team is absolutely critical for us. When we pride ourselves on the customer service element of it, it's simply right, and going back to the values, the right thing to do. But we want to do it really, really well. So we have a number of disciplines as to how we engage with the customers before completion and then post completion, and how any remedial issues they may have, how they're dealt with. What's critical, and some people may think isn't that exciting, but it is fascinating, is the whole finance piece. And the finance department spans literally from the beginning, from the land acquisition through to how much money we're getting in, how much money we're spending, and it's a really, really big support that feeds a lot of decision making that I've been making with the finance director. So all of those departments would have a director leading them, and then there's myself, and the director and myself are the management team responsible for making sure every year we deliver what we want to deliver and how we want to deliver it. So thanks, Ellie.
Iain, just to jump in there. So we've had a couple of good questions. Charlie, yours is a great question, but I'm going to just save that one. But the second question is, does Taylor Wimpey source its own land deals? Just because it's relevant to this slide. Is that something you do? Sorry,
do we source our own land fields?
Land deals? Do you source the deals?
Land deals, yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we, I had probably about 10 years in the land discipline. So Well, whilst you can buy land a number of ways, and sometimes there are agents out there who typically sell land, and you would buy it off them. For me, the biggest satisfaction of a landed person was actually finding a bit of land which nobody else knew about. You strike, like Ellie's field, she's got, I strike a deal with Ellie, we get into contracts, we get planning, the landowner's happy, we're happy, and go on and build a great community. So absolutely, yeah, we have to be opportunistic. You do, yeah.
Great and brilliant question. So well done for asking. And Faith, there's another question just on this topic, and then we've got, and we can move on. Faith, great question. What's the average length of a short-term or strategic land project for land acquisition?
Hey, brilliant question. Okay, typically in general modelling, from identifying a bit of land and shaking hands on a short-term bit of land through to getting the first house off of that's with a fair wind, about 18 months. It may typically fall between 18 to 24 months. So for us as an organisation, managing the risk over that time period is quite a big exposure for us as well. Strategic land, you could have anything, maybe 20 years, 10 years, if we sign up an agreement subject to when you've got planning on that piece. Things can be real challenges. And there's one site, when I worked in the north, an auction was tied up in 1995. We got planning, I think it was 2011, and this was actually on a site allocated in the local plan for housing. It was that sensitive and delicate. It was a real challenge. But yeah, lovely questions.
Yeah, well done. So we've got another 2 questions, but we'll carry on because these are more general questions, which I think we might cover in the next 2 sections.
Yeah, fine. Okay. So really, this slide is just to give you a bit of visibility over the different roles and positions you can have in each department. So in the land, and all of these have a really similar principle, is that you can go in at a really junior level and progress through to a director level. And that principle resonates through all of these. So in the land department, that would be an assistant land manager in the first instance, then a land manager, senior land manager progressing, or very much the same shape on a strategic land side. And on the strategic land side, the planning is quite a big element as well. So we may have specialist planners dealing with house building in there. On the technical side, I haven't expanded all the titles in here, but you would have trainees, you would have design and planning executives, you would have technicians who are quite very much into the detail, making sure all the information on the drawings are correct and they work actually in the field. And then those would progress into management positions, and then you'd have a technical manager and then a technical director. So again, a similar shape. The commercial department's a little bit more varied actually, and you have buyers in there for all of the day-to-day materials that we need, and things like the windows and the doors and the bigger stuff for the houses. The quantity surveyors who are in charge of the cost control once we've purchased the site, and also managing the subcontractors. And the estimator is the individual who would support me and the land team when I was in the land team, to say, right, how much can we pay for this? And so that person's full-time looking at land viabilities over and over and over. And then there's a director. In the production department, great opportunities where we have a direct trade pool that's growing and growing. So you can come in as apprentices, and we'll come on to that. Trainee assistant site manager is a relatively new position for us, but working really well. And that's an entry position into becoming an assistant site manager, who will progress to a site manager, and then a senior site manager, and a production manager, and a production director. So a really clear and developed progression within that department. And within the sales, I've spoken of some of these. So you'd have a sales executive on the site. You'd have a marketing support in the office. The sales progressor piece, just to expand on that. If we're selling houses, a lot of people who are buying off us have their own houses to sell. So a sales progressor is somebody who really gets involved in managing the chains with solicitors and the estate agents further down, and that's quite a full on. We have 2 sales progressors to give an indication of the amount, the quantum in there. Customer service, we have really sort of customer facing, a number of customer facing positions. The operatives who really go out and do the remedial works, and the customer relations individuals who go out and meet the customers. They meet them at pre-completion, post-completion, and probably have half a dozen really good touch points with them to make sure that customer is experiencing everything that we want them to experience. And that progression would be to a customer service manager and up to a head of customer service. And in finance, not too dissimilar: clerks, assistants, finance managers, and finance directors. Thanks, Ellie. So this slide, I really just want to provide, some real life examples and inspiration for you as to how you can progress in your career, because there's real life examples which are fantastic. So the first one is actually my production director at the moment in time, and this has got a lovely story on it as well, which I'll go on to secondly. But Ian Wood, my production director, is the gentleman on the photo, the bottom left. And he started as an apprentice joiner. I don't know when, it was a long time ago, but he began as an apprentice joiner and has progressed through the site management route. He then went into the commercial department for a little bit to get a bit of further development, then went back into production, and has been a production director for probably 7-8 years now. Loads of experience. It has been with Taylor Wimpey for the majority of that time. What is lovely about this story is that his father started as an apprentice joiner and made it to a production manager level. So that's his father in the middle. In the layer on top of that, which makes it even more wonderful, is that Ian's son on the right, Josh, started with us last September. Guess what? As an apprentice joiner. So is it in the blood? It's Taylor Wimpey, it's joinery. But looking at the genetics for Josh, he should have a great future. But it's a really good example of what an apprentice joiner, if you wanted to, the career path you could have.
Oh, that's such a nice story, and it really ties into a question that Charlie asked earlier. So I'm just going to jump in here.
Yep.
Charlie, great question. How many steps did it take you to get to MD? How many people would you manage to? So how many people do you manage, and how many steps did it take you to get to where you are in terms of progression?
Can I go on to save that one if possible for the next slide? Yeah. That's a lovely tee up for the next slide. If I don't cover any of the answers off you're looking for in that, please shout back there. Can we come back to the previous slide, Ellie? I'll just finish off that one, okay? But the next slide is about that. So the next one, if we just look at the two guys in the top right-hand corner here, well, one of the greatest privileges for me that I have is investing in people, developing people, and fundamentally giving people opportunities. I've been so fortunate. People have entrusted in me at a relatively young age to do things, and it's right. I'm so fortunate. I have that opportunity to repay that. So on the right is Steve Clark, and on the left is Richie Newton. This is a lovely story in itself. Richard is my commercial director, and Richard is probably 34. Steve is my technical director. He is 35. They both started as management trainees on the same intake. So when I come into the career opportunities and, evidence of real life progression through a company, investing in people, investing in their development, this is case in point. And it's been over the last couple of years or so. And it wasn't an easy step for both of them, but to give them the opportunity, and they've been in post about 18 months or so, and to say that they're stepping up and the technical discipline elements of each discipline, they're smashing it. They're still young, they've got to grow, as we all have at any point in time, in the leadership piece and everything else. But another great example. Now this last one, the gentleman on the bottom right, is actually my boss, a gentleman called Bryn Maidman. So he's responsible for 4 offices. He oversees 4 managing directors. Bryn started as a management trainee. Bryn then went into production. Then Bryn went through the assistant site manager, production manager, production director, managing director, and he's gone beyond managing director, from starting off where I think a lot of you individuals may be at a moment in time, wanting to start out on the production. So hopefully here, you're early on, you may not know what your career could look like, but guys, real life evidence is right here before you, and it's lovely. It's lovely to be part of it and to give people that opportunity. Ellie, I've been waffling for 30 minutes. Can I have a couple minutes more? Is that okay?
Of course, no, absolutely. I'm loving it. This is great.
Unless people start logging out and we've got nobody left, we'll give up. But so in terms of I think it was Charlie's question. My story. I rattled through this. School was a bit of a mixed bag. I had my good days, I had my bad days. I had my times where I was skiving lessons because I was in the gym. I was a sports fanatic, played in every sport team, played county sports stuff, and I was either in the zone or not in the zone. Had some frank conversations, bad parents' evenings, like you should get out of that class, you should give up on this. And I knew I was always hungry. I knew I had ambition. I didn't have a clear direction, and that goes back to my opening piece, guys. You're 8 years ahead of me. If you know you're thinking house building, you got a head start on me by 8 years. So the only reason I did geography was my sister did it. University, nothing more complicated than that. I thought, my sister did it. If I need some notes or need some files or whatever, I've got someone to call on. So I did a geography degree, and that was great. But then I thought, Iain, you need to put your finger out and think, let's take this seriously. If you want a house and to pay some mortgages and look after a wife and kids, you've got to get a little bit serious about life. So I believe, and I may say this again, but the biggest investment you can make is your personal investment. There's no bigger investment than that. So I said, right, okay, guys, this is crunch time. I'm going to become a bit of a geek, a cool geek for a year. And knuckled it down. And for me, this in my degree, I got a 2-1. In the masters, I made a promise saying, if I'm doing this, I'm getting the best outcome out of it. So you either get a distinction, a pass, or a fail. So the grading's pretty broad, and it wouldn't necessarily flatter you. You could be 1% off a distinction and get a pass. But I was really pleased in that only 2 of us on the course got a distinction. And when I say I was a cool geek, I was doing extra things, meeting tutors, having coffees with them, talking about them. For the first time, I became passionate about my self-development. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So a lot of students carry a lot of debt. Estate agency in 2000 was a bit of relatively easy pocket money. Estate agency got some money in. I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't getting what I needed out of job content. The intellectual challenge, in the sales side, I enjoyed it and I was relatively strong at it, but I needed more than it. And it was simply fate. The lady I was working next to, who was in a similar place, said, "Oh, have you seen this advert in this newspaper for the Wimpey graduate scheme?" She was going to apply, and I said, "Do you mind if I apply?" I then applied, and actually, very fortunately, I got in, and unfortunately for the individual, she didn't make it. But I got in, and I think for the first time, and probably first bit of advice for you, this is, you've got to stand out. No matter what you're doing, if you want to progress, you've got to find a piece that makes you different. Ultimately, there's a market out there of people who want to become an apprentice or a management trainee into a graduate scheme, but there could be 200, there could be 2,000 applicants for it. So what's going to make you stand out? So in my final year at university, it was very much the hockey club. I was taking on responsibilities of managing the club. What is it that makes you stand out? It is a key piece. So I then luckily got into the graduate scheme and found my niche from a rotational scheme in land. Really enjoyed that land discipline and started my career out in that department in 2004. in that really was a big learning curve for me at that point in time. The mentor schemes, the development schemes, that were nothing like what they are now, and it was very much sort of figuring out for yourself, which is a great way to learn. You push against doors, some open, some don't, some you have to go around, and that was great. Again, the biggest investment being sort of self-investment. I then took on further studies. I felt that was right and appropriate given the ambition I had at that stage to become a managing director. And that was an honest conversation with Taylor Wimpey, who very kindly sponsored me through that piece. They didn't have to. It was a gamble for them, but again, it's a really good example of our cultural principles and investment in the workforce. And in 2010, I became a land director. So my first director position in 2010. What Wimpey is fantastic at is a really good, I'll come on to this later on, piece, is you've got to develop as many experiences and gain them as you can. And that meant for me getting really uncomfortable in going to lead a department I knew nothing about. So I was offered an opportunity to become the technical director, but I knew nothing about drainage, nothing about utilities, nothing about drawing houses at all. But it gave me an opportunity to lead a big team, or a relatively more sizable team of 15 people: performance management, development, coaching, motivation, all on those pieces which come with leadership. And that's a huge bit I'll come back to later on. And I firmly believe if it was not for that, I would not have been afforded the opportunity to become a managing director. I think you need to have that breadth across different departments, really to understand it's not understanding the technicalities of the department, but it's really the bigger, the component parts of the business. When you're in one department, it can be quite isolating, and the vision can be quite short-sighted. As soon as you see two, your vision becomes much more sizable across the span of the organisation. So in 2016, I was 36 years of age when I became managing director. So it's one of the greatest moments for me. Everything I've been striving for. At that point in time, I was the youngest managing director, I think, in Taylor Wimpey. But for me, it was this is when it all starts. You've wanted it, and then now can you do it? And then I won't bore you with the details since then, but it's been a thoroughly enjoyable and pleasurable and very challenging period at the same time. So I think Charlie's question, does that answer how I got there? There was a bit, I think, was there a number of people question I didn't quite hear?
Yeah, so that's an amazing answer to the first part of the question. And then the second part of Charlie's question was, so how many people do you manage as part of your role now?
It's the management leadership. I'm going to get technical for a second. Management leadership is a separate conversation. Management, my main interaction is with the directors. So the shape of the business, the objectives for the business, the delivery, and the output is through the directors. However, what is critical for me is that I am really close to all the departments. So even in this period, I really enjoy getting in Teams calls with all of the sales team, all of the technical team. Guys, how we're feeling? This is pretty tough. How's that project going? So for me, the personal interaction with everybody is critical because you know what? The directors won't always tell me the truth. Some site managers will, though. The sales exec will. So to go out there, and what I love doing is very much, I don't always tell people when I'm going out the office or where I'm going. So I'll go and chat to the sales exec, chat to a site manager, chew the cud with them. How are things going? Well, where's your pain at? What do we need to do better for you? So yeah, the short answer is the directors is the main engagement, but what I would emphasize is for me, the engagement with the bigger piece, for me and my style of leadership is critical and very rewarding. It really is to be able to engage with people.
I'm just going to ask another question which has come in because I think it's really nice to add to that point. But so the question is, so if you weren't managing director, what would you like to be doing within Taylor Wimpey? I think that's a good one to have.
Good, yeah. When we have a bottle of wine, and we're with the directors, and we have a bottle of wine, and we say, "Oh, what would you do?" This exact question. It's so hard. Land is brilliant. Thoroughly love the negotiation piece and the satisfaction of that deal. I love playing with numbers. I really, really do. And it may be a bit of a surprising and boring answer, but the finance piece is fascinating because you could. The information, the analysis that numbers can give to shape the direction of the business, whether it's cost savings, value adding, that is huge, and to have time really to get into that. Yeah, I think finance is very much an art. It's not a hard science with the numbers, but every department is great. It really, really is. Customers, engaging with the customers. I'd love to be head of customer service, sales director, production. It's a useless answer. It's an unfair question. It's an unfair question. Unfair question. But yeah, land or finance is probably where I would come down. So in terms of Taylor Wimpey, and I say that, I mean, my hands-on skills are absolutely useless. So that's why I'm not going trade or site. I don't do DIY. So in terms of Taylor Wimpey, and probably a key piece for all of you, it is the schemes that we offer, how young people can get in with different backgrounds, different skill sets, different interests, but all have a fantastic opportunity and a great career. So there's three main different schemes on here that we have. The first one is the trade apprentices. And locally at East Midlands, last year we took on 12 apprentices. This year we'll be taking on some further apprentices. Nationally, it'll be a lot more than that. I don't have those statistics, Ellie, unfortunately, but it's certainly a growing strand to Taylor Wimpey. And the sole reason for that is because our strategy is to grow our direct trade quantum. So the number of joiners, the number of bricklayers, the number of scaffolders, the number of painters that Taylor Wimpey directly employ, we are looking to grow. We firmly believe that drives benefit in terms of quality. And actually to feed that, it's critical we have the apprentice scheme. So we've always had an apprentice scheme there, but over the last 2 years, the focus on this has increased significantly. In some regions, probably it may be north of 20-30 apprentices within each region, of which we have the 23. The management trainee scheme typically would fall into the technical department, the commercial department, or the sales department. You may recall I mentioned the trainee assistant site manager role, which we've had for a couple of years now, which is really popular and a really good insight, a good entry point into the production. So the trainee assistant site manager route would be the management trainee scheme in production. And then we have the graduate scheme where we take on circa 25 graduates every year. And possibly the swing over the last year or so is maybe more to go, put a greater weighting on the management trainee scheme, actually, in terms of the volume of recruits coming out and taking them in and developing them through the course of their careers and through the business. So those are the three schemes we have. And at the end of this scheme, and you will get this slide deck, there's links to each of these schemes. In failing that, you can very easily search through the Taylor Wimpey website. So yeah, this really probably in the top corner it says kind of top tips, and this is really not Taylor Wimpey's view. This is my own personal reflections and views. So dream big. So if I say, and it's maybe a bit unfair for the younger ones of you, but equally it's not a bad challenge to kind of put to yourself. But what is your 10-year plan? In 10 years, do you want to be a site manager? Do you want to have your own joinery contractor with employing 20 people, employing 100 people? Do you want to be a managing director? What is your 10-year plan? And the reason I say that is because if you don't have that plan, if you don't see that image, you don't know what you've got to do to get to that image. Quite simply, isn't it? Hopefully, quite a simple concept. But I believe you've got to look that far out, and I'm doing it now. Saying, well, what's my 10-year plan? What do I need to do to get to that place? There's a little saying, without goals, you can't grow. It's absolutely right. If you haven't got a 10-year goal, you're not going to grow. You're not going to change. The next one is really important to me, because I think a lot of this is about attitude, and I'm a firm believer that attitude trumps talent every day of the week. But we all have a commonality. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. We all have the same days in the week, weeks in the month, months in the year. We all have the same opportunity. What is different is what you're going to do in them, what I'm going to do in them, what Ellie's going to do in them. You know, we are all going to do different things. So subject to what your 10-year plan is, that should then shape how you spend your day. So if you want to be in charge of a company, a joinery contractor employing 100 people across Taylor Wimpey businesses in the Midlands, in the South, sitting around playing the Xbox or whatever, may not be the right way to do it. To invest in self-development, it is critical. There's a piece which a saying I really like, guys, attack every day. Attack it, no matter how naff the day before is, forget it. Really attack today. I had a tough day yesterday. So my day today, alarm went off at 5 o'clock. We got a little outbuilding, 5:30 in there, circuit, 6 o'clock shower. Then because I'm on childcare at the moment, 9 till 12. So I do a couple of hours before that, and I'll be working late tonight. That's my choice. It's a busy time. It's not an easy time for a business. We got a lot to get through. But what's your day? How do you spend that? The next one, this is about experiences. Okay, again, another really simple point from me. Who you are is simply an amalgamation of everything you have ever done, everything you have ever seen. That's who you are. For you to change as an individual, to learn more, it's stretching yourself, it's new experiences, and then that's what's going to make you much more aware about skill sets, about opportunities, about conduct, etc. So everything is about experiences. So going back to how you spend your 24 hours, lockdown, maybe a bit of spare time. Why don't you challenge yourself every day? I'm going to get 2 new experiences. Well, why not? It's there. Take it and take the day. The next one is a really important piece in personal development. And I just want you to look at the little circles on the right-hand side, which 3 circles. One says comfort, one says stretch, and one says stress. And this, for me, is a key piece to how you think about your own development. The comfort zone is lovely. It's comfortable. Nothing grows, nothing develops in the comfort zone. So if you don't want to grow, you don't want to develop, we stay comfortable. You don't get sweaty hands, you don't get sweaty armpits. Okay. If you want to develop, you've got to get out of that comfort zone. In a really good place to spend a lot of your time is in that stretch zone. And the stretch zone is an area whereby you are uncomfortable. You're being challenged. It's a place where I firmly believe that if you're not uncomfortable, you are not developing. So you've got to take yourself out of that comfort zone, get into the stretch and say, this is a new, going back to experiences, this is a new experience for me. I'm learning something new here. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm learning this and I'm pretty rubbish at it, but I'm going to stick at it. I'm going to grow. There's a bit of resilience training. And then the stress zone is a great piece to get into. I'm a bit weird up here, and if there's a really tough situation and the harder it is, the harder thing you can do, I will chase that. give me as much hard experience as you possibly can, because if I can get through that, I'm going to get through most stuff. And this is the reason going back to triathlon, but I took on a number of Ironman triathlons. So 2.4 miles swim, 112-mile bike, then a marathon at the end of it, because of that you go places. I've had a couple of collapses out there. You go places you don't already. I don't get to go in the workplace. So the key piece on the stretch, the stress zone, is that you cannot spend all your time in there. You can't. You will burn out. You'll destroy yourself. But to foray in and out of that zone is absolutely critical for you really to grow. So subject to where you are in your 10-year plan, your experiences, you've got to put things in there to say, right, I'm going to go. Know where you are. Be really self-aware. I'm going to go into that zone today. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I'm going to come out the other side of it. Actually, the next 2 days, I'm going to go in the stretch zone. And guys, that's a good week. So when this bank holiday, I'm going to have comfort zone. Brilliant. But you know what? Monday morning, I'm going to attack it. I'm going to go stress zone for 2 hours. So for me, when I saw this a number of years ago, it's a really simple visual, but my goodness, it's so helpful to visualize how you are progressing your own development. So hopefully that gives you a bit of maybe a bit of a tool with which with your mentor, or your families, your colleagues, and your future employers, you can apply that in terms of how you push and pull back. The last one really is make it your passion. This is really simple. I believe if people want to do something, they will do it. If people haven't done something and you've asked them to do it, or whatever else it is, if they don't do it, if they don't want to do it, it's not a passion. If you are absolutely obsessed about something, a passion for customer service, a passion for building quality homes, guess what, guys? You will find the energy to do that. You will find a relentless drive to actually do that, because it's your passion, and that's a great and that's the acid test of if you're in the right career path or not. So probably to kind of leave you with a bit of a philosophical challenge, going back to dreaming big, that 10-year plan. Okay, so if the image is a house, every house is built by a load of bricks, isn't it? So if the 10-year image, the 10-year vision is a house that's built by about 10,000. There you go, it's a boring stat. About 10,000 on average bricks in a house. But in terms of laying your bricks, have you started laying your bricks to build your house? To get to your vision, to build that image of where you want to be in 10 years. So I recognise you're really early on in your career. World really is ahead of you, but hopefully it may just be a little bit of prompt and provoke a bit of thought, and maybe how you go about your self-development. Ellie, I've overrun 25 minutes. I'm so sorry.
That is absolutely fine. That's been honestly so amazing and really motivating, I'm sure, for lots of the students. Iain, just before kind of we wrap up, I just want to ask.
Take as long as you need on questions. I mean, I can sort other stuff, so that's fine.
I want to just ask a few of the questions that have come in. So, and some of them have a similar theme. So I'm just going to kind of, summarize those ones. So you've had a couple of questions which are around, you mentioned around the different opportunities, which I know that we at Pathway will follow up with too, in terms of apprenticeships and trainee management schemes and graduate schemes. In light of the current situation with COVID-19, are they still open? If you don't know currently, that's fine, but we can get the answer to that question. But I'm just conscious of that being a few of the questions have that theme. Do you know the answer to that now? And I'll give it a stab. The COVID-19 piece,
in our view, or in my view, is a bit of a short-term hit for us in terms of the pain. But that doesn't mean we aren't going to come out the other side, and actually we won't be scaling back up to everything that we have been doing before. So in terms of the intention and the commitment to keep running these schemes, that absolutely would not waver. Well, we do firmly believe in investment really as early as we possibly can. In terms of this year, I can't speak nationally. Well, what I would say is the Taylor Wimpey website is there to keep tabs on. But what I will do, I'll liaise with the head of HR, the group HR director, get greater visibility over the nationally, get a bit of a flavour over what each business unit is looking to do within each region for the management trainees and for the apprentices to give you a flavour. We're in East Midlands, to give you an indication, we will be looking probably for a handful more of apprentices. The management trainee scheme this year, we had a big intake last year of management trainees, about half a dozen. This year that won't be happening. The graduate scheme, I expect, would still be operational, yeah. So for us, the big thing about development, as you've seen from my journey, development does not happen overnight. Development is a long piece. So actually to keep investing in that, it is the right thing to do. So I'd expect certainly a good degree of continuation.
Great, that's really helpful, thank you. And we'll share that information as well. So once you get the answer, so anyone who's on the line and wants to have an update in terms of what roles are available this year, we can definitely do that from a pathway side. I just want to get through it, then a couple more. So IBAD, great question as always. You always come up with the good question, with some amazing questions on these sessions. He's an electrician, but want to get into QS. Do you have any advice into quantity surveying? Is that on offer at Taylor Wimpey, and what would you suggest?
Yeah, quantity surveying is an absolutely integral part of our commercial department. The work they do is so important, and one of my favourite meetings is, in fact, is with the QSs every month, going through all the valuations that they do. So in terms of the route into it, there is a management trainee scheme that does serve the commercial department and the quantity surveying position. So it would be probably an entry at the management trainee level, or equally subject to if you're an electrical apprentice or working for an electrical organisation. Again, we have assistant quantity surveyors, then we have quantity surveyors, then we have senior quantity surveyors, then we have commercial managers. So yes, certainly by all means, if you want to share your individual details, I can pass them across to the respective Taylor Wimpey region that's in closest proximity to you. Absolutely. And the other piece on that, sorry, I would say, what I like to think we're good at, really, if you want exposure in any of these disciplines, you know, to say, guys, can we spend a couple of weeks with you? We would try our utmost to try and facilitate that for you. So if it was, can I have a couple of weeks to sit alongside some of your QSs, see how they operate, what are the stresses and strains, what are the skill sets? Absolutely, we'll try and do that the best we can.
Amazing, and that's such a good opportunity. And I just want, for the last question then, Gabriella, I know you had one question around a kind of next step that some of the students could take that you've heard from the work this week. So Gabriella, I wonder if you wanted to finish off with that question quickly before we wrap up.
The one about LinkedIn? Yeah, Iain, my question was, technology advances and we're going more and more remote, especially with COVID, is forcing us basically to change our whole work ethic and work-life balance. So LinkedIn is known to be a really, really great platform for the professional world. And I was wanting to ask, how valuable has it been for you in the past and today, and how can the younger people leverage that to get connected and learn about what's going on a broader scale?
Yeah, we had a warm-up on this question. Should we be honest, Gabrielle? We had a warm-up sort of 5 minutes before the start, and I think that there's a critical piece in this. I'm of a different generation, Gabriella, where when I started, so I started in 2003. I don't even know if Facebook was really around then, but LinkedIn wasn't in place. I think probably answering the question with two different sort of elements to it. The networking piece is probably the the networking piece. How are we doing? You okay? The networking piece is absolutely critical, and I would say early on in my career, it wasn't an intentional approach. It was absolutely necessary. So yeah, I guess it was intentional. But the key thing about networking for me is people within the organisation as much as people outside of the organisation. So I'm a firm believer. I don't know very much, but I know a lot of people who know a lot of things. So very often, I can phone a friend and they know all the information. So it's getting a network of people. In any role, whatever you do, you're not expected to know everything. It's impossible. You can't. So you need to develop your network for that. In terms of career, developing your career, the LinkedIn piece. I don't have first-hand experience of it really leveraging it for career development, Gabrielle, but I have probably about 10 approaches a day on my LinkedIn page. And there's a lot of there's definitely an art to making approaches. And I think probably, probably Ellie can arrange maybe sessions on this to help the individuals. But a key thing I would say is brevity. I get a lot of long-winded emails that I don't have time to read in terms of the messaging. The direction and the ambition, the piece in there. I'd also say that to make somebody listen to you, you've got to stand out. So it comes back to that. Well, why are you different? Why would they want to kind of pick up your message and not another 50 they get that day? So I think there is a big piece. There are definitely experts out there on who can drive that as a piece of networking. What I would say, and I've had a number of these conversations, is that despite the LinkedIn and the technology, for me, in terms of a lot of the whether I'm negotiating land deals with a land director, whether I'm meeting chief executives of local authorities, if I'm meeting owners of companies, the subcontractors, the personal piece is still absolutely mission critical. I don't believe that is ever going to go away. Yes, once you know somebody and you have that relationship, actually, you may revert back to, video conferencing over Zoom or Teams, but actually to forge and generate that relationship, I personally still believe meeting people in the flesh, in the flesh is critical. And I think that there's, Ellie will know this better than me, but I think people make up their minds about you in the first 7 seconds. So in terms of that 7 seconds, I'd much rather be doing that face-to-face than over a video logistics in COVID lockdown permitting and things. So I think networking, having a network is absolutely critical. Meeting people in person is absolutely critical. And again, using it, going back to the the experiences piece, you've got to put yourself forward out there to say, can you help me? Can I spend time with you? Can you guide me? So probably an example, when I was really hungry to be an MD, I got in contact with different managing directors of Taylor Wimpey, who I knew, dear Mark, dear Iain, chat with Iain at the time. Can I just come over to Manchester, have a pub meal with you and just have a chat? What does it feel like to be an MD? What does that look like? So network is mission critical. I'm not an expert on LinkedIn, but I think any networking, it's the why do you stand out? Why are they going to notice you? Piece is key.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And great, I guess, piece to kind of wrap up on. First and foremost, I guess, Iain, just thank you so much for your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant. We've got some comments coming in from various students saying thank you and what a great session it's been, an inspiring session. And I feel the same personally on my side. So thank you for that. Students, well done for joining, and well done for, you know, interacting. We've had some brilliant questions today. From our side at Pathway CTM, we'll follow up with every single person who's been on the call today and find out, you know, next steps and how we can help support you. But in the meantime, before you get that in your inbox tomorrow, then do email us at student@pathwayctm with any comments or feedback if you have anything you want to share with us, or follow us on Instagram at pathwayctm if you haven't already. So thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant, and we'll share this recording with any students who haven't been able to make it today. So thanks, Iain, and I hope you've enjoyed it.
I've had a great time. Thank you for the questions, guys. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Gabriella, for having me. Thank you.
Thanks.